Senator Robert C. Byrd, President Pro Tem of the United States Senate, you have a new book out called The Senate, 1789 to 1989. Why did you do this?
I want my colleagues today and senators of tomorrow and the media of today and tomorrow and the American people through them to better understand this unique institution, the United States Senate, and the role that it has played over these 2 centuries in fulfilling its responsibilities under the Constitution. We need to develop an institutional memory. So many of us who are there now don't have that institutional memory, and therefore we're unable to accurately interpret today's events and to foresee what may happen in the future. To do these things, we need to look backward into the past.
This book is 800 pages long. How did you put it together?
That is what I refer to as a mini, M-I-N-I, mini Manhattan project. There are almost 300 pictures in that book. There are 39 chapters. Those 39 chapters came from 42 speeches which I delivered on the Senate floor. These speeches were carefully researched. I read them on the Senate floor. I did not put them into the record via the back door. And the pictures came from many, many sources. So it took a lot of people working together to do this job. The Library of Congress, the Senate historian and his staff. I've spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours on it myself. I've proofread the book 5 times, know every word that went into it, every comma, exclamation point, and question mark. I went over the pictures carefully, and I chose the design on the book, and it took many, many months, years on the part of a lot of people.
Explain what this design is.
That design shows the eagle, and it's all on marbled paper. It's an exquisitely bound book. The title is very simple: The Senate, 1789, 1989.
Can the general public buy this?
The general public can buy it from the government printing office. The government printing office has outlets all over this country. They can buy it at a cost of $55 per copy. They send their check to the superintendent of documents, the government printing office, and they'll get the book. Let me hasten to say that I make no royalties. I get no benefits from the book. I would like to see it sell, because I want the contents of that book to become known around this country. I want the Senate of the United States to be better appreciated than what it is, not only by the people on the outside, but the people on the inside and the people in the media.
Tell the story how you came to give that first speech, and what day was it?
It was on March 21, 1980. I was the majority leader. That year, I had told my colleagues that we would have no roll call votes on Fridays. The Senate would be open. We could make speeches. We could carry on business by voice vote and so on. And in the gallery that day, my younger granddaughter appeared with a class of students. She was one of the students, and with her teacher and with her father. And I felt that inasmuch as there was so little going on, I should take some time and talk about the Senate so that the class would feel that it had been benefited by its visit. That's how the first speech came about. The following Friday, my older granddaughter was in the gallery with a class, she being one of the students, and again, she was with her teacher. Again, the same father, my same son-in-law, was there. So I felt I ought to treat her as I treated my younger granddaughter, but at the same time I wanted my son-in-law to hear a different speech. So I made another speech. I didn't have these speeches prepared. It was no problem for me to talk about the Senate for an hour or so or a day. And so that's how it came about. After the first two speeches then, other senators who had read the speeches or who had heard them at that time on the squawk boxes — we didn't have television in the Senate then — and officers of the Senate, the pages, other people around the Senate, the doorkeepers and so on, commented on those speeches. And they said they liked them, they would like to hear more. So that planted the idea, why don't I develop a history of the Senate? It will take a long time. I can possibly deliver 100 speeches on it. And so that's how it came about. So over the next 7 to 8 years, I delivered speeches on the history of the Senate, so that there are circa 100 speeches that I've made. Now, there'll be a second volume. The material's already there because I've already delivered the speeches. There will very likely be a third volume because there's enough material, and maybe even a fourth volume.
Did you deliver all your speeches without copy in front of you?
Oh, no. I had to, going from the first two, which were extemporaneous because the circumstances just came about without foreknowledge. Once I had decided that I was going to develop the history of the Senate through a series of lectures on the Senate floor, then I began to read from prepared speeches.
Where's this picture from?
That was a picture that was taken at a conference in room 207, just off the Senate floor. President Reagan came to the conference that day. He had been newly elected, and so we had a joint meeting of Democrats and Republicans in that. It's the Mansfield room, 207, and the camera caught me looking over the president's head.
300 photographs. And I think I've heard this from so many people who picked this book up. It's one of the most handsome books that people have ever seen. The paper, the printing, who did it?
The government printing office, that's a Senate document. The government printing office, and it has been authorized, the printing of it has been authorized by the Senate via a Senate resolution. The government printing office did the work on that. The government printing office is not accustomed to doing this kind of work. So there were a lot of bugs in it for a while. And I went over the galley proofs, as I say, 5 times, and finally it was put into shape, and then it was contracted out by the government printing office. And an excellent publisher and binder actually did the final piece.
Who helped you in the Senate itself?
In the Senate itself, the Senate historian and his staff, and my own staff helped me to a considerable extent, but I for the most part, as far as in the Senate, other than the Senate historian's staff, I for the most part then did about all the work.
What's the reaction you're getting?
Excellent. Senators are exuberant about it. Everybody who has seen it loves it, wants a copy of it, and people who have received it comment very favorably with respect to it.
You have any idea how many copies the government printing office had printed originally?
I believe about 10,000 or 11,000 copies. Copies have gone to all of the depository libraries throughout the United States. Those that are on the government printing office's list have received them. I have sent other copies to various colleges and universities, law professors, where I've had access to the names, because I want that book to get exposure where it will be most appreciated. There are people who would like to have the book. It's limited in number as of now, but there can be a second or third printing or additional printing. But there are people who will look at it, look at the pictures, look at the index to see if their names are in the index, and then they'll put it on the shelf. It's a beautiful piece. But I want people to see it who will read it, who will teach it in their classes. I want the media especially to absorb it so that they will get their facts straight.